Good morning.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
As usual, wait a few minutes for people to join. Um, in the meantime, do we have any additional topics? So we have the life cycle and provisioning chair
Hey,
discussion.
hey Joe, I have a topic.
Okay, what is that?
What NVIDIA released, DPF. I've been promising it for a while and finally it's out. So I'd like to talk to it for a few minutes.
Yeah, that sounds perfectly good. Double check one thing and give people one more minute. Ah, okay. That's what I thought. Okay, so we can get started. All right. Sridhar, any announcements?
Uh, yeah, so we have a new marketing representative from LF to OPI. She was supposed to join, maybe she will join. Her name is Jill Lovato. I think if somebody would have met, she's a very senior person with respect to marketing and everything. So she will be preparing a plan for 2025, and we need support from a lot of members in this case. She will reach out to the members also regarding that. We want to do a good amount of marketing this in 2025. So she was brought in for that purpose, and I'm pretty sure she will do excellent job this year. That's the only announcement. I suppose she will join. Just a quick introduction.
Yeah, that's fine. If she joins, she can do a quick introduction, or
Yeah.
or it can be done in a future call. Yeah, I know Miles is out. Oh, so the next announcement is my I'm going to be on a flight. Um, I believe I'm actually on the flight. No, I'm not actually on the flight, but I am out traveling next Thursday. So I will not be able to run the meetings. So Tim, do you want to take over for next Thursday?
Yeah, that's fine, Joe. Usually Sridhar helps, so we manage through it.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there. Not an issue.
Okay. All right. So I'll be out, but you guys can take over, and Mark will attend in my stead as the Dell representative.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Um,
Jill
there's
is in the call
yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah, we can do that now.
Hello, Jill.
We
Good
can do
morning.
that now, and then we'll talk about the chair, where we have a volunteer, Mango Boost Bridge Repo, and then Alad can talk to us about NVIDIA, the NVIDIA DPF release.
Yeah. Hey,
Jill,
hi,
all yours.
Jill, can you give a quick introduction about yourself? I just mentioned about you. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Apologies for being late. I've had some issues accessing the calendar link online for the meeting. So my name is Jill Lovato. I've been with the Linux Foundation for over 9 years. I currently run marketing and communications for LF Networking and a handful of other networking projects. So I'm very familiar with the space and with the ecosystem, and I'm really excited to work with this group and get to know you all a little bit better. One of my goals is to foster some cross collaboration between some of the projects where it's appropriate. So again, I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Right. Yeah, and actually, we could imagine something like possible lab cross collaboration, right? Because we have a shared lab set up in a colo.
Yeah,
And-
Sridhar had mentioned that. That's great.
Yeah, and so that might be something we could leverage more widely, and maybe even set up a shared lab environment, because our lab demands are not excessive at the moment. And if they were, we would just grow the lab. I mean, if we had
Yeah.
use, we could justify growing the lab. And the notion of a shared lab rather than individual company labs is really attractive, in my opinion, to a program, one to Linux Foundation programs. So, thanks to Mercha and others, we have a very nice setup. And Mercha or Mark could tell you that all the automation's there, and then how it runs and all that. So that might be something worth exploring. And there maybe even are a couple of specific opportunities we can talk about in a couple or 3 weeks, as being a way to test it out. We'll see how a couple things develop, but there is a potential to test out that kind of collaboration.
Yeah, great.
Any questions from anyone or any thoughts from anyone? No, and all right, lifecycle and provisioning chair. So Miles isn't here. He had to be absent for this call, but there's a candidate, and we have exactly one. I talked to another person, and that fell through. But we do have one candidate. So what I'm going to ask them to do is send a note to the mailing list, and then what I recommend is that a vote be held next week, and we confirm them. Again, the candidate, is I exchanged a couple of little notes with them, and they look quite good. So I will ask them to send hey, I want to apply here's my, here's my little letter to the TSC, and then you guys can just and ask them to attend next week. You guys can discuss that and vote. Well, as I said, it looks good to me. I'm not going to ask for a blind vote today. I thought about it. I'm like, hey, we have exactly one candidate. Looks good to me. Let's vote him in. But I'm not going to do that to you guys. You're like, hey, you're pushing things a little bit far, Joe. So anyway, that's very good news that we have someone who's definitely appears qualified to me. All right, so I'm gonna ask, I'll ask them I'll ask them to basically apply. But did anyone else turn anyone up? Okay. So based on last last week's TSC meeting and the discussion with Mango Boost, they sent a request for a repo. So Mark, you saw that? You're on double mute, Mark.
No, sorry, Zoom's not cooperating today. Yeah, I got it
Okay.
yesterday.
Any issue with getting that set up? So we agreed as the TSC that a Mango Boost bridge that matches to the other bridges we have.
Okay, now I know the name because they didn't tell me the name in their request.
Okay. Is a very reasonable request and matches our, all our policies. We discussed it. We listened to Mango Boost. Seems like a good idea. Any issues with getting it set up?
No, shouldn't be.
All right, so let's get that. So let's agree to get that done. And all right, so maybe reply to that email thread saying, we're going to get it to happen, and we can put we'll tell everyone, once it's done. We can announce it on the general OPI list saying, hey, new repo created. Here's what it contains. Here's what it's for, and you can get.
Yeah, it'll just be the framework. They'll have to add all their stuff to it.
And you can get if you need a write up, you can ask for a write up from Dongju, et cetera, et cetera. All right. Anyone have any questions on that based on the Mango Boost discussion last week and the need, the need for the bridge repo and all that stuff? Okay. All right. All right. Any other topics? All right, Alad, it's all yours. Do you want to share your screen? And now Alad's on double mute.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's a Zoom thing. I mean, we have this happen all the time, which is why I know to ask right away. All right, would you like to share your screen, Alad?
No, I will just direct your attention to the Slack, to the main channel, to be exact. And I put there the blog post, and the blog post actually includes everything that you need. It includes a breakdown of what it is that we released and all the sources. So the code, the manuals, the descriptions, everything right at the bottom. So if you scroll down on the blog, and you can do this in your own time, you'll see the containers and Helm charts, the GitHub repo, the documentation, and the reference deployment guide. So really everything that you need to play around with this package. Now, what is this package? So NVIDIA for a while now has been working on the next level of democratizing DPUs. We came to the conclusion that if we want something done, we need to get our hands dirty. So for the past 18 months, we've been working on creating 2 Kubernetes operators, one that does lifecycle management provisioning for the DPU, and the other that does service orchestration and can contribute to service chaining. Now, these are Kubernetes operators, and the code is out there and open. So you can take a look at them, you can figure out how to use them for Marvell, how to use them for Pensando, how to use them for Intel. It's pretty simple as far as the adoption, because these are calling out on APIs. So just connect your APIs to the same type of operators, or change the operators to your liking. The goal is that when somebody is setting up their system and they don't have the know-how that AWS does, or even a tier 2 cloud does, they now have a way with a Kubernetes environment to set up the Bluefield or the Intel or Mount Evans, whatever, or Marvell, whomever the vendor is, as a part of that cluster. So our first release is for host trusted, but we will be releasing in the future host not trusted as well. And again, we just decided to do some heavy lifting on our end and then share it in open source form, or I should say open code form, so everybody can do the same. And we're hoping that this will invigorate not only OPI, but the whole industry to work on this and to create something which is truly vendor agnostic. That's really the headline, Joe. And then I
right,
just
so-
encourage everybody
No, that's great.
to read the blog and everything.
No. So yeah, I read the blog. And I guess what would be interesting for you to talk about is I mean, you just made the statement, invigorate OPI and the whole industry around, presumably you meant to say around DPUs, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. Is that correct?
Yes, that is the idea. I mean,
Okay.
again, I work in telco. Telco are big enterprise, and many enterprises work the same way, like banks and others, and they don't like vendor lock-in. So no matter how wonderful and amazing NVIDIA product is or somebody else's product is, they're not going to rely on one. And they're definitely not going to go down the path of certifying everything with just one person, with just one vendor. This is the same for everything that we do. So the idea is that this code, because we're showing you exactly what we wrote, should help others adopt similar type of application, or similar type of operators, I should say, in the Kubernetes environment. And then you'll be able to, or the client will be able to select, here's an operator from NVIDIA, here's an operator from Intel, here's an operator from Pensando. But if I'm in a Kubernetes environment, I just pick the operator and the rest is already configured for me. And
Yeah.
they have the same mentality, meaning one is for lifecycle management provisioning, the other for setting up my services. As long as I have those two, I know how to deploy DPUs, IPUs.
Yeah. So you mean like we've been saying an OPI for 2.5 years or 2 years?
Exactly. Yeah. It's just that we put in
Oh,
a
so-
lot of code.
Right? Okay. So here's my question. What is the OPI tie-in for this, and how does this help OPI? And what are you guys proposing? So that's for both you and Oren, what are you guys proposing to bring into OPI for the DPF tie-in? In other words, so you dumped all this code, you put it in open source, you didn't put it in OPI open source, and now you're like, hey, this is great for OPI. Explain how.
Okay. So
Or
our
what,
hope
or
is,
what your proposal is, because
yeah.
all interesting stuff, no issues with it. It looks quite reasonable. It's a bunch of the stuff we've been saying all along. So so how do we tie this in and make OPI better?
So my hope is that the other vendors look at it and hopefully they like it. If they like it, we create an OPI depository with these operators from all vendors and show how this basically, if you choose like Red Hat, OpenShift, or any other Kubernetes framework, we show at OPI that you can choose your operator, and there you go, it works. So I'm hoping that OPI will become the lab or the facilitator of the testing of these technologies, whomever the vendor is, to show vendor neutrality. Does that make sense?
So, okay, so OPI lab being used to validate is one tie-in that could be useful, but I don't. Okay, it would be nice if there were more than that. So if there was
Yeah, there is more than that. That's just step one. Step two will be to start taking an F5 Kubernetes stack and putting it on all 3 or 4 operators and seeing it work. And then adding another workload and server chaining them. So that, in my mind, there's 2-3 years of work here. It's just a matter of do the other vendors think this is a good concept and can they use it? And if the answer is yes, then we have our work cut out for us for, I think, again, 2-3 years. Building an ecosystem of ISVs that come, tie themselves into the Kubernetes operators, show how this is deployed, show how we service chain them. So really building an ecosystem around this that can, on the one hand, have ISVs, on the other hand, have multiple vendors of the hardware.
Okay. Okay. I have a couple more questions, but I'm going to let everyone else ask questions and have discussion first, and then I'll finish up. And if everyone's completely silent, I'll just do mine. I mean, I'm not going to force
No,
you guys.
no, I have a few questions, Joe.
Yeah, please.
So,
Yeah,
so,
go.
so Lad, NVIDIA has developed this on their own. They're making it now available. As Joe says, this is a lot of what OPI has been talking about, but not actually doing. So it's actually exciting to see that sort of come together. My question to you, Alad, is how does this move forward? Do we continue working on this approach in the community? Or is NVIDIA going to do more proprietary in the dark development and then bring it out? I guess I worried that we end up with sort of unplanned code forks with that approach.
So whatever we develop from now on, it will be opened and shared. The whole idea is to have it in a Kubernetes open environment. But I understand what you're saying. Am I able to disclose everything that we're working on? No, but I just explained to you the gist of it, which is we are also going to work with ISVs and OS vendors to share this with them and to help them adopt it. Now, if other hardware vendors do the same, it will be very easy for them because we've already opened the door. So the NVIDIA lane is to onboard ISVs and OS vendors. Hopefully, other hardware vendors will join us, and then you'll be able to do they'll be able to do the same. So every ISV we work with, because they've already have their Kubernetes version and they're set up to work with operators, it should be a pretty small lift for them to go from the NVIDIA operator to an Intel operator, for example.
Yeah, if they follow the same approach as what DPF has done.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Now, again, it could be that the other vendor will say, no, this is BS. We're not going to follow this approach, which is fine. NVIDIA is going down this approach.
So I got a question on this. Intel put out IPDK, which is very similar to this 2 years ago. And shared it in the community. If I were Intel, why would I want to use this?
Well, as far as I know, IPDK is not the same structure as far as the source is not well, the code is not completely open, and it's very focused on P4 and tools that fit Intel very well. This is not that. This is an operator inside Kubernetes. So it's, to me, it's much more of a general use case than IPDK. But you're right, Intel may decide that they invest in IPDK, that's the way they want to move forward, and that's fine.
Well,
I'm just saying
I'm
that,
just-
that our approach is Kubernetes and
Well,
these two
there-
operators.
The only reason I brought it up and was asking the question is because that's, some of the things that we as integrators are asking. Number one. Number two, the IPDK has a Kubernetes operator. Yours is a Kubernetes operator. So, trying to understand from our viewpoint as an integrator, what it would do.
I understand. And again, this is what I'm trying to solve for you, but I might succeed and I might not. I think that when we looked at IPDK, we felt like it's very heavily leaning towards things that Intel's already implemented, engines that they already have, and we didn't do that. In our Kubernetes operators, we're not calling out any specific engines or solutions that we already have. It's just an operator that calls on APIs.
Okay.
So it's much more generic in my mind. And again, the whole idea is to support any Kubernetes environment. I think that IPDK made some choices early on that locked down even that aspect. I don't remember what it was, but maybe some specific types of Kubernetes containers, I think.
Well, like I said, we'll have to take a deeper look since this is just announced. So but
Yeah, I
want to
agree. And again,
understand the
this
differences.
is a soft launch and it's for developers, so it's very early on. But yeah, the whole idea is to get people acquainted with this, and just like any other thing, you might like it, you might not like it. It's a very open thing, so it's okay. What I'm saying is that NVIDIA will continue to invest in this in order to facilitate an ecosystem out of this, and we would love it for OPI to be there to extend that to other vendors and to help facilitate this ecosystem again across multi-vendor, multi-solution.
So I think what would be, okay, I'll let everyone else go. Again, I have a couple of statements, but please, others have discussion, talk to Alad. This is certainly an interesting topic.
So a lot in reading the blog, which somehow I got access to that a couple days ago. I don't know, maybe somebody sent me a link because I had already read it. There's sort of this tone to the blog about this is an NVIDIA ecosystem being created with DPF tied back to NGC, which is sort of your software store front. So my question is, how does a multi-vendor DPF work with this NGC tieback to both NVIDIA code as well as ISV code that might be hosted there?
Okay, great question. So there are two types of applications that we're going to do on the card. One type of application is the in-house application, which is going to be out of our store. The other type is a third-party type of application like an F5, and that will be in the open, meaning that will not come through our store. That will be you guys selling a license over the DPF. So in an ideal scenario, a Red Hat or a SUSE or Canonical will deploy their latest Kubernetes stack, and one of the plugins is going to be DPF. And once you have DPF, you can go to F5 and say, hey, I want a SPK license. Or you can go to somebody else and say, hey, I want that license. And once you get the license, they send you a container, or they can download the container, and the container just seamlessly goes on it. Now, yes, there are engines which are specific to the Bluefield, which will come from our store, like HBN. This is a specific solution from NVIDIA. And of course, Intel has the same, Marvell has the same. They have their own solutions. So I know that there will be engines that are specifically adopted to the specific vendors. What I'm saying is, for all the third party, which are much greater in number, we need an open way to digest them. So you do the work on SPK, then you don't need to do the work 3 or 4 times. You do it once for an operator, and all the others can digest it as well. That's the notion. So if Red Hat has a plugin for us, and as a plugin for Intel, as a plugin for Marvell as operators, it'll be much easier for a client to just go click, click, and then bring in a package. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I like the automation piece. It was this idea that sort of NVIDIA would maintain a curated set of packages, even from ISVs that had been sort of tested and pre-approved and then put up in the NGC so that they could be automatically pulled down. What you're describing is a little more diffuse, meaning that somehow DPF would have to know how to reach out to actual third-party sites to grab packages.
Look, I'm saying that I don't think NVIDIA is gonna be able to sell F5 or any other package as well as F5. So yes, we automate, but I'm not going to pretend that NVIDIA sales folks are going to sell F5 packages. I don't think that's realistic. Just like Dell is not really, or any other OEM is not really going out and selling tons of other applications. All we can do is to show that it works together and has nice performance, and then open the door to, hey, you can use this and it's easy to implement.
Okay, it's early days, Elad. We'll continue to talk about this for sure.
Sure. Any other questions?
Anyone else?
Is the source code for the DPI operator itself is open, or that's I couldn't find that.
So if you look inside the blog and you scroll down, you can see that we have the containers and the Helm charts, so
Yes.
and a GitHub. So you should have everything there. If you're missing something, let me know.
No, the source code for the operator itself, because the operator is currently distributed as a package, as a container. But I want to find the source code for the operator itself. Basically, I was looking for the reconcile logic. What is that kind of thing?
I can ask. I'm not an expert on this. I can ask, but basically, I was told that if you take the container and Helm charts and look at the GitHub and then use the reference deployment guides, you can pretty much build it and you see all the code. If that's not the case, then I need to ask our team what's missing.
Yeah. I can send over email. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. So from an OPI perspective, I think what would be a good follow-in is to follow up a lot in Oren is, can you guys make a more explicit proposal of how to tie what we've been doing in OPI in with this and leverage this, much in the way that we talked about the same thing with IPDK previously. And I think that would be potentially useful for both DPF and OPI. And but I think we ought to have something a little more explicit, other than people can do what they want. I think there probably are real tie-ins. Again, I haven't studied DPF and it's not mine, so I can't tell you what those are off the top of my head. But it looks to me from reading the blog that there could be tie-ins, maybe a repo to bridge to DPF, saying, look, here's how OPI integrates and why OPI plus DPF are better together, much like we did with IPDK, because we said the same things with IPDK, or some of the same things. So I think that would be a useful proposal that you guys could bring in, even if it was just outline form, or here's the kind of things you would
Yeah.
do explicitly. I think that would go a long way and allow crawl, allow useful cross leveraging. And if we had that, then I think we could do a Linux Foundation OPI press release saying, look, here's how you tie into this new thing that just got released.
Is
Because
there a template for that, Joe?
there is no template for that. You just bring in and say, hey, here's what you would add to OPI to leverage DPF directly. I mean, that's what was done with the the storage bridges, which is what we're going to do. We're about to create the Mango Boost thing to tie into that.
Okay.
That's what we did with the IPDK bridges. That's what we did with the EVPN work. You just bring in a thing saying, hey, here's how somebody who's using the OPI repos would use would tie into DPF and what value they get out of DPF. More explicitly, right? Because again, just
Yeah.
discussing DPF in general is great, but that's not enough if we're going to really leverage it in OPI, as you suggest a lot. You need that next step. And
Okay.
I don't,
I'll do
I
a
don't,
write-up.
and I don't think that's a terrible thing. I mean, again,
No,
you should
no
bring it in.
problem.
You should bring it in, and we should take a look and go, yeah, actually, so if you're going to use DPF, here's how you tie in, and here's the value it gives, and here's what you give up, if anything. And if you don't give anything up, that's even better. So I think that would be the next step in this thread of discussion. And thanks for bringing this in and talking to us about it. This is excellent. I mean, again, I saw it already as well, but you know, bringing it into OPI and is a great thing to have done. So thank you.
Sure.
And that was pretty much it. So what is our next step with this? I think it's worth taking a next step or taking a look at a next step. And what is that? And you guys have to tell us, hey, here's our proposal, and we can then ask questions and discuss it and uh, see if it makes sense. I mean, I would expect it would, but having these
Sure.
things.
I can do a write-up. No problem.
Okay.
Again, for me, it all hinges on one question, which is, do the other vendors feel comfortable using this, yes or no? Do they feel comfortable creating a version of this for themselves? And if the answer is yes, then we have plenty to do. If the answer is no, then maybe, it remains a more specific to NVIDIA thing.
Yeah, well, that's a fantastic summary, and that's why I want a proposal for, what would people do? And how could it be tied together through OPI? Because if OPI can tie it together, and then that's good for OPI and good for open community. If no one cares, then as you say, different direction has to be taken.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth the proposal, and let's see it at the level, with a more explicit proposal of here's what you actually do, as opposed to a blog, Mr. Mr. Goldenberg's blog is very lovely, but again, it doesn't say what you need to say to have a proposal for how
Of course, of
OPI.
course. Again, it was just a write-up to explain to developers what we're doing and what they can get and why.
No,
I'll do the write-up. No
Yeah,
worries.
no problem with that. So let's have the actual proposal, and see how the tie-in would work, and then we have something concrete, technical to discuss and evaluate. And so Jill, to your question, if we come up with something, then we could do a press release on OPI. OPI intends to embrace and enable DPF by doing the following. And
That would be great. Yeah.
but I don't want to just do a repost release until we know what the OPI tie-in is, because we don't.
Yeah.
The you know, that's not how we've operated so far.
Yeah, fair enough. And I posted to be clear, I posted that question before we had this discussion.
No,
I
no,
hadn't read the
great.
blog yet.
No, it's great. It's great. So it's a perfect question for you to be asking. So, all right. Any other discussion from anyone, or you know, any feedback for you know my request that I just made? Okay. Any other topics from anyone? All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and we will have the meeting next week. I will not be there, but Tim and
Yeah, me and Sridhar will handle it, Joe.
Sridhar will run it.
Mhm.
And thank you for attending, and we'll close the meeting now.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.